Kamaru Usman comments on Sharamagomedov's loss to MVP, what it means, and the stylistic challenge that he was facing in the octagon when trying to solve the puzzle of effectively outstriking one of the most unorthodox fighters in the whole company. Venom Page was able to turn the Shara fight into a stand-up clash with a tempo that he's very familiar and most comfortable with. The one-eyed Dagestani fell victim to the Brit's bouncing, wide stance and blitzing striking style. Shara named many reasons why he allegedly wasn't 100% in there as it relates to health and overall readiness. The primary one, which he kept repeating in many interviews, is some sort of a problem with his intestines. He said he could barely stop himself from throwing up inside of the octagon, and that the discomfort was so bad that half the time he was fighting on autopilot. Whether his statements are true or not is another question, of course. But MVP definitely got a good boost with the win as he tries to climb closer to a title fight. Here's what Usman said.
Like I said before this, it's very difficult to fight a guy like MVP and look good. I mean, he's just such a specialist with the way that he moves, with the way that he fights, to where it's just difficult. Look at this flying knee. Just missed the mark a little bit more. Like, it's very difficult for guys. Like, I know this is the second time now with MVP that I've said this, and I know a lot of people, when the fight's announced, they go, oh my God, yes, MVP, yeah. I'm like, listen, MVP is so good at what he does. He's so specialized in it that he makes these strikers, these super strikers, look bad. You can't. It's very difficult to fight. Look at the what's the Irish dude when he fought the Irish dude his last fight. He turned him into a grappler, So yeah, MVP is very, very talented. He's super specialized in what he does, and these fights are not as exciting as people are gonna think because, yes, they're strikers. No, MVP is so specialized in what he does. He makes these guys look bad. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it, Cormier. I think the difference in this fight was the range.
Michael Bisping and Paul Felder discuss what Sean Strickland has to do in order to beat DDP in their upcoming rematch. Bisping's friendship with Strickland often results in him openly rooting for the former champion, despite being one of UFC's fight commentators, a position that's traditionally supposed to be occupied by someone entirely neutral. Having close ties to specific fighters in this case can cause some problems, especially if they're commentating on the event with the said fighter. But anyway, whether Bisping will be working the Du Plessis versus Strickland event this week or not, he doesn't hide his friendship with Sean and the fact that he wants him to reclaim his title. On their podcast, Bisping and Felder discussed what's the biggest challenge that Du Plessis is facing this time with DDP and what he has to change in his fighting style in order to be successful in avenging his loss and taking the belt away from the South African.
The press conference is going to be more violent potentially than even the fight is going to be, honestly.
I think Sean, because obviously what he's got to do different is win. Because he lost last time, right? So how does he do that?
Yeah. How do you change
So he has the Philly shell, he has one hand up and there's like this. I think he needs to abandon that. He needs to have both hands up because the way Dricus comes forward and swings the way that he does, if you got both hands up, you got a better chance of blocking them, okay? And he hasn't done that Philly shell all of his life. I remember training with Sean back in the day and he never used to do that. So I say for this one, never mind that. Get both hands up. You got to go forward and he's got to be more aggressive. He's got to fight more like the version of himself at the press conference. I understand why he doesn't. I understand it's being smart. It's using a fight IQ. It's controlling your emotions, fighting behind the jab. This is all really, really good things to do. But for this one, he's got to bite down on his mouthpiece and meet Dricus head on. Otherwise, he's going to go through him again. He's going to force him on the back foot for the most part. He'll land the takedowns. He'll get a little bit of control, and it'll be another close fight. Sean's got to it's on Sean to make all the changes.
Oh, yeah, and especially now, because now Dricus is the champ.
Dricus Du Plessis goes crazy after an altercation with Sean Strickland before their rematch in Sydney. According to Daniel Cormier, the two ran into each other at the fighter's hotel, which resulted in an exchange of words and an altercation. According to DC, when the embedded crew tried to film DDP after the incident was over, he was angry and shouted at the cameraman to stop recording him. This certainly wouldn't be the first time these two got heated. They stole the main show on UFC 296 when a brawl broke out after Strickland jumped on Du Plessis in the crowd, while both of them were just attending the event, and Dricus was standing behind him. The South African basically making Strickland cry as a result of his trash talk didn't help with the tension between the two, so all of this happening should not be at all shocking. According to DC, DDP and Sean got into it after crossing paths in the hotel. They exchanged remarks and things escalated quickly. The security made sure to quickly move them in opposing directions to avoid any physical escalation. But DC says that after things calmed down, the UFC-embedded crew started filming again, as they are walking around with fighters during fight week and capturing the most interesting moments. But supposedly, the middleweight champion was not happy with the words that were exchanged, and he was yelling things to Sean as they escorted him away. And when the embedded cameraman turned on the camera to record him, Dricus got mad and made him turn it off.
He's mad. You could tell. Like when he got off and he was kind of like shaking his head, ripped his mic off, told embedded, stop filming. He was so mad and upset. Yeah.
Ray Longo shares thoughts on Israel Adesanya's position and future in the UFC, following his knockout loss to Imavov. What is next for the former middleweight champion? Where he should go from here? Maybe just retire and be done with it? These are some of the most frequent questions and discussions about Izzy's loss and its implications. On one hand, he still looks decent up to the moment he gets caught or put in extremely difficult spots and doesn't really look old or much slower. But on the other, he's lost 3 fights in a row now, got outstruck for 5 rounds by Strickland, submitted by Du Plessis, and knocked out by Imavov. So if he does decide to continue with his career, we can expect another tough fight with a rising contender in his next outing, as that's the way UFC likes to match up former champions on a skid. Izzy himself has expressed nothing that would indicate he is thinking about retirement now, but this option is something to be looked at as a real possibility. Here's what Merab's coach thinks Israel should do.
I still think it has to be mental, really mental, you know.
So do you think it's time for him to retire? I know that, John always says we're not in the business of retiring fighters, but do you think it might be that time?
Depends on what your perspective is. Is your perspective to make money? Then don't retire. If your perspective is to win and get back to the, you think you're a champ again, I think at this point I'd have to say retire. But he looks good enough where he shouldn't retire, but it's all going to depend on the fights they give him.
Right.
Those high level fights now, maybe he just can't get up for anymore. I mean, I think he's pretty articulate. I think he could tell you Eugene has a good feeling on what's going on. It's only the guys that are in the circle that really know what's going on and what's transpiring. We don't get to see all of that, so people know one way or the other. But no, I'm sure he's making huge money, so why not, make the money and support your family.